Hey everyone, so 3.14 is still in PTU, but this week CIG have said they want to finally push it to live, so the wait is almost over. So today I just want to briefly go through some of the things that are coming up, like Xenothreat and maybe even the 400i, and hopefully later this week we'll get an update on some of this stuff. Before we start though, if you enjoyed this video, please consider leaving a like and or subscribing, I really appreciate it. Alright, so like I said, I've got a couple of things I want to talk about today, so feel free to look at the timestamps and jump around to what's interesting to you, but I just want to start off with talking about the general performance and stability of 3.14 in the PTU. And honestly, even playing recently, I am a little worried about them trying to release it this week. There's just a ton of things that still need work, and while that's always the case in Star Citizen, it's a bit more pronounced with 3.14. The main things that I find annoying in this patch so far are the desync and the poor server performance, but that combined with these new combat changes can make ship combat, and even things like missions, which were working decently well in 3.13, really frustrating to do. It feels like every ship-to-ship engagement now involves tracking your enemy for a few seconds and then waiting to see what hits actually register and how much of your now limited volley of fire disappears into the void because the ship you were shooting at has actually teleported a few kilometers to a new spot. Again, this isn't a new thing. Desync has been around in previous patches. It's just much more common to see in 3.14, and I think it's even more annoying than usual since even if you're running energy weapons now, you have that limited supply of stored bolts, so it's annoying to waste those shooting at what you think is your target only to have it disappear shortly after. Thankfully, CIG is definitely aware of this issue, and I think a large percentage of the massive amount of patches we've been receiving lately have included some sort of attempts to fix the issue, but it seems like it can only be improved so much with the current level of server performance, and that isn't really going to get fixed until we get server meshing. And this level of desync is going on even without Xenothreat going on in the background. I'll talk about this in a bit, but Xenothreat is back for this patch, which is good for those who didn't get to play it during its pretty brief introduction earlier this year, but it never was good for server performance, so I can only imagine what it's going to be like trying to do anything else when that's going on a server. But yeah, just browsing through player feedback, it looks like Xenothreat is causing similar performance hits just like last time, and in some instances server crashes, which I do not recall from last time, so that's kind of unfortunate. But beyond desync, there's not a ton else wrong with 3.14, so if they somehow manage to get it under control somehow, at least during the times when this event isn't running, it's looking like it might still be a pretty decent patch. I mentioned those 30Ks that were caused by the event, but during my time testing the PTU, I can't remember a server crash other than that. But again, this is just anecdotal, so if your experience is different, then feel free to let me know in the comments. But 3.14 brings along some pretty cool features, and if you haven't gotten a chance to take a look at those yet, I did make a video about that a little while ago if you want to check that out. But there's definitely some stuff to look forward to, and I really think the new direction they're taking ship-to-ship combat in can be great once the server performance isn't ruining it. It's a lot more engaging, and I think they can really add a lot of depth to combat using these new systems that they've just started to add. Next, I want to talk about the Origin 400i. Now, a lot of you probably rolled your eyes at that, since it was first rumored more than half a year ago at this point. I was actually starting to lose hope that we'd ever see the ship myself, but after some entertaining sock eating over at SCLeaks that you might want to check out, CIG released this teaser image, and it's pretty hard to say that it's from anything other than this mysterious 400i. It's definitely from an Origin ship at least, and looking at this leaked model here, you can see what this close-up shot might be taking a look at. So yeah, that's pretty exciting, because even though this is an Origin ship, which is not always everyone's favorite manufacturer, this looks like it's going to be in that very popular size category around ships like the Constellation and Star Runner. Now, other than this image from CIG, nothing new has really come out yet about this ship, so if you want my full opinions on it, you can go check out that video that I made 7 months ago, but I really want to see this ship in game. Like I talked about in that video, I just really like that class of ship because it's great for solo use, it's great for multi-crew use, and they generally allow for you to take part in a large amount of the gameplay that's in Star Citizen. So I really want to see this ship in game, but what do you guys think is going to happen with it? At this point, we're pretty close to CitizenCon, so I think there's a good chance that they just hold its release until then, but supposedly it's ready to go whenever, so do you think we'll get it right when 3.14 goes live? I'd be happy to see that happen. Okay, now I want to get into Xenothreat coming back. So if you haven't heard about this or don't remember what it is, this is that big in-game event that we saw earlier this year in which players are tasked with helping the UE Navy to repel the pirate group Xenothreat. I don't mean to just be plugging my other videos for this whole video, but again, with this being something that's already been in game before, if you want a bit more detail about the event and a lot more footage from the event, I did make a couple of videos on the original thing. But the general idea is that you start this mission by trying to help resupply the UEE's Javelin, which is done by visiting wrecked starfarers, where you have to fight off some Xenothreat forces in both ships and on foot in the wrecks. And then you take the 3 different types of volatile cargo from those wrecks back to the Navy's station where their Javelin is docked. So how well you do in this first part as a server affects how much help the Javelin will be able to give you in the next part of the mission, and that's where you have to fight Xenothreat's fleet, which consists of a few Idrises and some other ships. This is definitely a unique mission. It's not really like anything else that's available in the game, and some of the fleet battles that resulted even from the first event were pretty awesome. I would call this version we're getting now a polished version of what we saw earlier, but at this point, that doesn't seem to be an accurate description, since this one seems to cause server crashes and other issues more frequently than last time, although that could partially be caused by the player count not being lowered this time. If I recall correctly, they dropped it down to 40 last time to help with server performance, but I haven't seen that happen for this iteration. The mission has been tweaked though, and I like most of these changes, like the mission progressing from the first phase to the second phase sequentially now instead of having to wait a few days for that to happen. There are still a few issues besides server performance though, and I think the most frustrating ones of these are just to do with how inadequate the loss system is. Just like last time, there's always going to be some people who want to disrupt events like this that inspire big community efforts, and dealing with them can sometimes be impossible with the current crime stat system. I think the main issue is that there's no way to defend your ship from trespassers, which is something I've had an issue with for a while. But yeah, since you have to load up your ship with cargo in the beginning phase of this mission, that leaves you pretty vulnerable to someone just floating onto your ship and stealing it or self-destructing it. And even if you take plenty of precautions and are very vigilant, if they don't have a crime stat, you can't really do anything to get someone off your ship without getting a crime stat yourself. And if you end up with a crime stat, that's going to fail the Xenothreat mission for you, and therefore accomplish the person's goal of trying to disrupt your gameplay. The only solution I can think of for this in the current law system until we're actually allowed to defend our ships is to have a person, or at least an account, sitting in your pilot's seat at all times, so someone trying to mess with your ship will at least have to get a crime stat if they want to steal it. And at that point you can deal with them safely. But yeah, people can be really annoying with this event, and I'd really like to see some sort of band-aid fix for this. It's not necessarily the people messing with you as you're trying to take part in the event that's frustrating, it's more so the fact that you can't really do anything about it. So depending on how common this ends up being on a whole, I think they might want to consider doing something to combat annoying situations like this. Other than that though, and the not great performance, I did enjoy playing through these missions last time. Like I said, they're on a much larger scale than pretty much anything else we can see in the verse, and it's a whole lot of fun to see what the game has the potential to be like once we eventually have the player counts on a server to have more and more missions like this. What do you guys think though? I'm glad to see this event coming back because it seems like they spent a good amount of time making it, so it would be a shame for it to only get played for a couple of weeks by a few players like it was at the beginning of the year, but I could also see people who are more into mining and other stuff annoyed with the hit to server performance that this is probably going to cause, and that might make it tough for you to go about your business as usual in 3.14. One last thing about Xenothreat though is that I did think of one ship that might help make it a bit less frustrating to deal with those shipjackers I was talking about earlier, and that's the Nomad from Consolidated Outland. The reason the Nomad might be a good option is because of its somewhat odd design where its cargo bay is completely exposed to the elements and also doesn't lead into the inside of the ship. This means that you can load up those boxes of supplies without worrying about potential stowaways at all, since you can just have your ship sealed. Now obviously, if someone's just trying to mess with you, they could do something like just remove your cargo as you load it, but I'd rather have that happen than get my ship stolen. Another nice thing about the Nomad is that it's got this reasonable amount of space at the rear for boxes and whatnot, but it will also let you take part in the ship-to-ship combat portions of the missions without having to go and switch ships if you want to. It's definitely not a fighter, and its handling characteristics in 3.14 reflect this, but it does have 3 size 3 weapon mounts, the same as something like the Gladius, so you can do some reasonable damage with it. And if you're just trying to hammer those Idrises and provide a bit of a distraction to help get those torpedo hits off from the bombers that are going to be assisting you, it's more than capable of doing that. These hardpoints are filled with gimbaled size 2s in the stock loadout, which I would probably recommend keeping if you want to hit fighters and anything fast like that, just because of that pretty poor maneuverability, but I personally swapped them out for size 3 Panther repeaters, since hitting a large target like an Idris should be no problem. You do have to be a little careful about taking any fire back though, because it's a bit of a large target to only have 3 size 1 shields, and especially against the Idris's turrets, you're not going to last long with that. But yeah, at under 1 million credits in-game, I think the Nomad's unique characteristics might make it a surprisingly good experience to use this ship during Xenothreat, and I'm going to be trying it out in the coming weeks for sure. Alright, so that's all I have for this video. There's definitely some things to look forward to coming up soon. Hopefully we'll be getting some more info about the 400i later this week, but if not, we'll at least be getting 3.14 going to live and Xenothreat to tide us over. So yeah, let me know your thoughts on this stuff and if you're excited about it. Now I want to thank my channel members, GreatWatch93 and StarJumpStarlet. Thank you so much for supporting the channel, and if you guys want to help me out, you can do so by hitting that like or subscribe button, or if you really want to support the channel, you can hit the join button to become a member. Thanks for watching!